Hello and welcome to Conversations from the A&amp Network. In this episode, I speak to Marie, a German foster carer. She got in touch to offer some insights into the German system and how fostering is viewed and arranged there. It's a fascinating subject that highlights as many differences as there are similarities between the German and the UK system. We'd love to hear from any other carers or adopters from far-flung lands. So if that's you, please do get in touch through the Facebook page, the app formerly known as Twitter, or you can email us at anfpodcast@gmail.com.
Well, hello. I am Marie, and I live in northern Germany. And for now 1.5 years, I have been an emergency foster carer, and I am also a writer in their 50s. I have 2 grown-up children, and they have left home for a while. And then I thought, oh my God, that's so great. Now the horse is dead, the dog's dead, and the children are gone. I'm going to be amazingly free and do all these wonderful things and travel. And then along came a pandemic. So there was no traveling and no adventures to be had in the world. And also I got a bit bored with all the freedom. So I decided to get another dog, but also maybe engage more in a way that I think is good and interesting way to engage with the community also, because that is what one thing about emergency foster care is to me, to do something where I know this must be a good thing, mustn't it? I thought. While politics were getting more and more complicated, there has to be something where I'm sure that is a good thing. But also really, I just love children, and that is, my partner also does that. And we weren't going to be the grandparents, hoping grandparents to pester the children and go, well, are you going to breed soon? Because, we like children. And so we qualified to be foster parents, emergency foster parents in that case.
Could you tell me, so when you emailed me, you were talking about some of the differences, and it was fascinating. Mm-hmm, and I think that we've been looking recently. We off the back of we spoke to Irina, who is an Austrian foster carer in Australia, and so can you tell me about the process? How does one become a foster carer in Germany, and who runs foster care in Germany?
Okay, maybe to even go a bit further back to the historic backgrounds of how our system came to be what it is these days, which is really quite different from the English system, I think. So, and now let's mention the war. That is after, because during the time of the war, really, there has been lots of cruelty from the state directed against families and children, taking children as a threat to the parents, to politically threaten them, or taking them for racial, ideological reasons, and or sending them to wars or to Hitler-Nazi children's camps and then making them child soldiers, and or of course kill them in concentration camps and all that. So all the horrors from the war have, after the there has been a constitution. How is it called? Well, you make a constitution, right, for the new country to become. So the people who decided about those rights decided that the parental rights should now be very strong, and they are those strong parental rights are part of the German constitution, and there should be a big wall to hinder anything like that happen again. So now these parental rights still exist, strong parental rights, which are in the case of the fostering and adoption question, of course, the birth parents' rights. And foster parents' rights only very slowly changed to be made more comprehensive or bigger, as opposed to the children, the children's birth parents' rights. So I deviated a bit from your original question, how to become a foster parent. But just to paint this out a bit more, I don't know, would you like some statistics, or would you rather give a pass on that?
I would, because I think we, like anyone, you sort of think that the way you do it is normal. And I think that it's interesting because, like you said, that there is a dark adoption and fostering in a lot of countries have a dark history. And I don't think England is particularly clean.
Yeah.
But I know that in terms of, the Second World War and National Socialism and children removed to be kind of having their identity altered and must hover over that post-war period. And that, like you said, those laws and regulations and rules that were put in place then are still the ones in place now, I would imagine. So
yeah.
You mentioned adoption. Is adoption very prevalent? I mean, do you have any facts and figures about adoption?
All. Yeah, I have, and then so the reliable numbers I have are from 2022, and there have been in the whole of Germany 3,820 adoptions, but 70% of those were adoptions by step parents. So
right,
these are not the typical adoptions as you would talk about, but this like in a partnership where the stepfather would maybe say, I now want to adopt you to make you legal, and you can inherit, and all these questions. So there were maybe just about 1,000 adoptions in that year, but there were 14,955 terminations of parental rights, and
right.
But as I mentioned before, parental rights are not that often terminated in Germany because the requirements are quite high. So in Germany, there's altogether 84 million people, just to have a reference number.
Yeah.
And in 2022, 58,400 young people were newly placed in a home or foster family. And at 25%, the main reason was the absence of the caregiver of the young people concerned. For example, due to illness or underage refugee coming into the country. There has been a broad stream of unaccompanied refugees entering in the 2015 years, and they then have a right to be taken into care by the states. So then these children will come and ask to be taken into care. That is already quite a big part of children in care in Germany. And in the second place was as a reason to be taken into care was the threat to the child's well-being through neglect, physical abuse, psychological abuse, or sexualized violence, with 17% these reasons. The third most reason for a new placement was the parents' limited parenting skills, 13%, for example, due to pedagogical, what? Well, if you're just overloaded with all the work you have to do and educational uncertainty. The parents of the birth parents of these young people were particularly likely to be single parents, mostly mothers, of course, in one of two cases. So 50% were from single households. And with regard to the economic situation, the young people and their parents were often very close to the poverty line, 65% of all cases, and live wholly or partly on transfer payments. I don't know if that's the word. Transfer. Do you say transfer payments? Like unemployment benefit or social assistance.
Those are
Yes,
really interesting
that is.
statistics, and I would imagine that
Mhm.
they're in some ways that the reasons why children can't remain with their parents is probably comparable to like England and the UK in terms of that those proportions, but maybe different in the numbers, maybe. But
Mm.
what happens to those children in terms of what does foster care look like? Do you have group homes? Are children placed mainly with foster carers, or do you have sort of residential facilities?
I have a Okay, we have there's currently 121,000 young people living in institutions and
All right.
86,000 in foster families.
Those statistics are quite different from the UK, even as
Hmm.
a percentage that we have very few children who are in institutions or group homes.
Hmm.
Most of
Hmm.
our children are in foster care. So you're a foster carer.
I am, yeah.
Um, what makes the difference between a child going into foster care as opposed to an institution?
We do have group homes and children's homes, and then there's crisis centers. Um, and the theory is that the children would maybe come to the crisis center first if they don't
Yeah.
have a direct placement with a foster family. Um, and then from there, they will find a place in a group home or in a children's home. And and then there's a special institution called SOS Kinderdörfer, children's villages, where they will be a family-like living arrangement with two uh, um, foster parents and who will never change, who do have holidays, but
Right.
who live there with their families, and then the children, the foster children, live with them permanently. Um, but the children who are not in that particular setup will be served in shifts, and they have like their little room, and being one or two of them, and then they will be looked after by social workers, and they have like a key how many social workers per children and so on. But that is unfortunately now all theory, because the situation is really quite dire and in a crisis, and has been for a while. So, like in my the metropolis I live in, there is a temporary emergency children youth home, and like during 2015 when all the children came, then they would even set up containers so the children would have a roof over the head, and the service for the children is not nearly as it was supposed to be
Yeah.
in theory. Hmm. Yeah, and they have quite high turnover too, because people don't stay in those workplaces for a long time. The social workers, they get tired and suffer from the type of work they have. So
Yeah.
then they leave those workplaces, and so there's a lot of change for the children, which is of course quite tragic for them and their attachment
Yeah.
possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that you're an emergency foster carer. So
Hmm.
what is the route for children into your home? I mean, well,
Hmm. Hmm.
we
Yeah,
we
that's a
we
good
still haven't
idea.
got quite
Hmm.
got
Yeah.
we still haven't got quite to how you became a foster carer. How did you become a foster carer? And then maybe we'll ask
I
that
became
question.
okay. Well, I just got interested in the subject, and then I rang. I just looked in the internet who was doing um, these trainings for foster carers, and that is here an agency. Uh, but it can be quite different in other parts of the country uh, who offers the training. So, but here it was one agency, and they have taken over all the foster carers training. And then we have yeah, first that was all online. We have an information evening, and then you get questionnaires uh, and you get prepared to go into another workshop. And that was just a weekend workshop to explain all the basics. And we did this together with the permanent foster parents. So although that is two quite different goals for what we wanted to work towards, we were taught at the same time. And then there is a second part of workshops where you're within only your group. So we were only with other emergency foster carers.
Yeah.
And
so is there an assessment process that, I mean, are you taken through an assessment? Do social workers come and visit you, or is it, does that take long? Do you have a license or a registration, or are you, these are all ways I would describe UK fostering. So I'm kind of, I'm struggling to think what does that look like? How long does that take, that process?
It took over a year altogether, but that is also to do with the fact that they couldn't offer so many courses. Just not enough people to teach the courses,
right.
Even if there was interest, I think. So we had to show a certificate of good conduct, which had to be written up by the police, and that is quite far going to, like, if ever you did anything wrong, they'll let you know. And we have to have a health check, and that was taken by a military doctor in the health office in our town, and they would have us do squats and touch the floor and breathe in and out, and they will listen to our lungs like we're a good old horse to be bought. But this horse would just only have to carry children, of course. And then we had to do a drug test. I think that might be not in all towns, but in my town there have been some tragic cases where children in care have died from taking methadone from their foster parents, and so that has been introduced. So bits of our hair got cut. The most expensive and bad hairdresser in my town. So there's like 6 centimeters, and they check you for half a year's worth of drug intake, and you mustn't take any drugs at all. So also no hashish or whatever. And you have to write your life stories as a basis to discuss your views on childcare and how you think good child rearing is done, or what your values are, and what values you've grown up with, and just to further this way of thinking about families and what it means and how you meet other families and their different values and all that. So then with these life stories in hand, you go back to your social workers, and then they talk to you about your life. And they then have to write an evaluation about you and if you could possibly a good foster parent. And they also come for a house visit and look in your flat. I had imagined that this would be much more difficult than it actually was, because well, it wasn't like, it was just normal household, and I hadn't made everything like childproof or anything, because I said, well, it's going to be some time, and if there's a child who's running around, then I can still, close all the drawers, but maybe the child will be much older, and then why would I close the drawer? Or I said, well, there will be all the shampoos and the soaps will be behind closed doors at that time. And then they'd go, well, that's okay. Do you have a swimming pool? And I said, no, obviously. There's no swimming pool here.
Live in a flat.
Yes, indeed. But they were then easily happy after we didn't have a swimming pool. So that was the house visit. And then they would send people to psychiatric checkups, to the
Right.
health health amt. Damn, what's that word again? The health district office. Yeah. So they send you to the health office, and then you have to talk to them if they think maybe you have a screw loose or something. And they think that because maybe you tell them that you have had therapy before in your life. And I found that really weird, because people who just said, oh, I've been beaten up by my parents all the time, but I'm fine. They would not have a psychiatric checkup, but other candidates who would say, I had therapy for a few years because I thought, clean up the cobwebs in my life. They would then have to go to the psychiatric evaluation and be further evaluated. And they specifically like to do that to single women who, on the one hand, they are urgently trying to find new people to be emergency foster parents. And they say, you can be, a couple, you can be not a couple, you can be gay, or you can be different cultures, and everybody's welcome. But when it really comes to it, then the practice shows that then they'd rather you not be so different. Oh, I had forgotten to mention, you also have to show them you have enough money to not have to live off the foster care, because foster care, also the emergency foster care in Germany, is not a job, but it is seen as voluntary work. And so you get, that is, I think, also maybe has to do with after the war, when all the men came back from the war to get their jobs back. And then in western part of Germany, the women were doing all the work, like building up the countries or working in fabrications and everything. And then they had this installing this very patriarchal rollback, where now women had to go back to the kitchens. And part of that idea that all these housewives now lived from their husband's income was that they would then, of course, at some point maybe be bored. And being so bored, since their children now grew up, they would maybe take another child to look after. And these children could then, be foster children, who would typically, like maybe in the 50s, be children of not married mothers, So the construct has been made for quite a different lifestyle than now exists. And obviously, there's problems of recruitment for further Florence Nightingales who want to be volunteers here for this.
So, do you get any payment at all? Do you get money to support the child's needs, for food and clothing,
yes,
and etc.?
We do, and there has been a raise recently, but there's quite different between the different parts of Germany. because of federalism. Federalism came to us, and that really has a big influence on foster care today in Germany also. Federalism came because after the war, the victorious powers said, well, what are we going to do with these fighty Huns and Germans? And maybe we should just, take away all the industry and have them graze sheep. That might be a good thing for them, and stop them warfaring. And then the dangers of communism loomed in Europe, and so they decided to not do that, but instead have Germans, Western Germany, give them money from the Marshall Plan, and then rebuild it as a front against communism within Germany. And part of this front was to then part the power. So there shouldn't be a national power, but the country should be divided, and thus not become so
powerful as one big power.
Yeah, as a crazy national spirit. So there are certain things decided only on a level between county and county and county, like everything to do with education or art, and also all the care system, children's care, all that is decided regionally. And so there might be a law, which is not a case law in Germany, and that law has a certain content, but how that content is then applied in the cases in that county will be decided by the courts in that county. So also the pay can be very different, and how the judges view the rights of birth parents or the rights of foster parents can be largely very different. Some say, well, parents are always best, they don't even look at the case and try to always bring the child back to their birth parents, and others would be quite different and maybe ask the children or think, oh, yeah, poor people, they can only be dangerous, not better not have them have the child back. So that can be totally different views and experiences as foster parents and also as permanent foster parents, which is normal more than adoption is in Germany. So yeah.
So I'm going to turn the clock forward, and you've kind of really painted this picture of a system that's got lots of similarities, but lots of historic differences, a different culture. So you were approved. Do you have to go to a panel? Who signs you off and says you can now be a foster carer?
That would be, in our case, that was the agency who had taken from the town the job to do our trainings, and they write a recommendation, and then is it CPS? Is it called CPS? The youth office,
right?
Youth help office. It's called CPS, or Social Services, Youth Welfare Office. How do you call it? CPS, right?
In England, we have children's social care.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they then they do also a house visit and drink all your coffee, and then afterwards they decide if that recommendation, if they want to follow the recommendation. And as a foster parent, you can either then sign with the children's welfare office directly, or you sign with an agency. But in another county, I have heard that the social workers in the office just said to the parents, we don't really have a training now, but you can come and we tell you something for 2 hours, and then you can be foster parents. And they thought that was like totally enough to be prepared for what there is to come. So there's a difference in services.
So as much as you have the law, how that law is then worked out in the different regions is different. So you're approved now as a foster carer. Did you go with the agency or with the children's services? Which one did you choose?
I went for the children's services because, once for once it's all regional. So when you're in a big town, if we cared for a child that lived in the other part of the town, and we are accompanying contact with the parents, with the birth parents, for example, then we would have to maybe drive for 1.5 hours and then meet for an hour and then drive 1.5 hours back, which is like really annoying if you have to do it maybe 3 times a week or something, which could
Yeah.
happen when the child is to be returned soon to their family. Or so that was a question of the proximity. And also, I found that with the agency, they also had the same problems as the town have with their social workers, like they're ill, overworked, and changing jobs. And so if I want to reach someone, I can go directly and wait only once, But if I have the same problem with my agency, then I'll have to wait twice. That's what I thought. So I'd rather wait only once. That's what I thought.
Well, that makes sense that if you, like you say, with an agency, they would then have to then go and contact the children's organization. And so it's a direct relationship.
They couldn't decide it for themselves either. Oh, let me just say for the money, because I think that's quite interesting to know. Also, I have no idea how it is in England, but in Germany, like as with everything, that differs from the different regions. But for permanent foster care, I think it starts at about €1,000 per month. Plus, you get child benefit for about, I think, 250. And but that's and depending on the needs of the child, that's the part that is just for your work caring for the child, that can be doubled or tripled. And with the emergency foster care now, since with the inflation, and to even find people who want to do it, they have raised from 1,600 for babies. This is in 3 steps: age group 0 to 5, and then 6 to, I think, 11, and then 11 to 18, maybe.
Right.
You're an adult with 18 here. And then for the emergency foster care, that has risen from 1,600, but that's everything, like for the all the children's needs and your paid voluntary
costs.
Work. And that has now been lifted to starting at 2,200 and going up to 2,700 for the older children, I think. But that might be different in another part of the country where you get paid maybe 1,000 per month or even less. I don't know. But one thing's for sure, it's even the money that is thought to be for the child. When that is €700 in a big town, you can hardly pay the room. And then after that, you have a 24-hour job. And have no other income really possibilities. So I was quite naive, thinking, well, that's great. These babies, they sleep a lot, and while they sleep, I'll just keep writing. I'll just still keep working. But that doesn't work out. And
I was looking at those numbers, and they're not that different from
all right.
What I mean, again, like in the UK, we would have different local areas would have different allowances or different amounts, but it's not that different. And one of the criticisms is that it's just enough.
Yeah,
just enough.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experience then of fostering, because we've covered a lot of background information.
Yeah.
So you're approved. You're a registered foster carer, and so you're an emergency foster carer. What makes children need an emergency home? What, rather than go to a group home or a kind of a children's village?
So that I think in Germany, the child has the right to grow up in a family, basically. So a group home or a children's home, that would always have to be second choice, really. So if the child is taken into care, say there is someone says the child is being endangered at its home, then the social workers will go to that family, and firstly they might try to other ways to keep the child there, but install some help in the family. And if the family then doesn't react, or the abuse has been quite dreary, so that the child cannot stay there, they will then say, either you are now asking for our help and the help will be we place the child elsewhere, or we go to the courts and then we will try to terminate your parental rights. But then the parents usually say, well, of course, I keep my parental rights, take the child, and then the situation is thus that the parents usually have all the parental rights. That also is the stay, so deciding where to stay. That is then taken over. This right, this particular part of the right, is taken over by the by the social services, but all the other rights will remain with the parents usually. Mm-hmm. Okay, but your question was different. Your question was, why do they come to you? Because I think often the parents who are looking into permanent foster care, which would be like the people who want to be adopters in England, they wish for the children who come to them to have a cleared legal status, and that can take some time. So when the children come, it is not clear if they can go back to their families, if there have to be, if the families have to fulfill some things that are being asked of them, or if they will go elsewhere, maybe to a group home when they're older. They will often not find a permanent foster family when they are older. And older, being older than 4, I think, is now even old. And
so it's a place where where literally children are put, the first place that they're put, while the judges and the courts and the social workers and the families, the decisions are being made, or the legal processes are being followed in terms of where the children then go.
That's right. And until that is not clear, the children often remain in the emergency foster care for far too long than is actually planned. So it used to be that 3 months would be time that should be enough for the child to be in emergency foster care, but that is now very often much longer. So children stay in the emergency foster care for even a year, or maybe 1.5 years. All that can happen because the courts are slow and all the other processes take a long time. And the parents, or the birth parents, would seek to overturn judgments, and all that can really make this a very long process. And then what happens is that the emergency foster parents love the children so much, they will say, okay, then they can stay, and then they are not emergency foster carers anymore. They move over to the to the permanency.
So I mean, that sounds like quite a. So you will literally be taking children straight away from their home.
I wouldn't be taking them from the home. I would not be there. So what happens?
But they would come to you from there.
Or from the emergency children's home, from the temporary emergency children's home. So we are here in this town not expected to be awake day and night in case a call comes. So if the call comes outside of the opening times of the CPS, then the children will be brought to this emergency home, and then we go there to get them there. Or maybe I have also gotten a child from a hospital that was supposed to be removed from the parents, and then we saw that not all the exploration into the child's health had been done. So then the child got taken in care, but it couldn't leave the hospital because once you leave, then afterwards in the process of law, the other side might say, those broken bones, they had them from the foster family, possibly.
Right.
So then we said we are going to stay with the child in the hospital, and then suddenly we lived in the hospital until all the everything necessary had been done. So this happens.
Wow.
Or I have been called for if I wanted to take 5 Ukrainian children because their mother went into the hospital to have a sixth. and actually, I think, it's not impossible. I said, if you get me someone who's going to clean the flat and cook, and I just do all the other stuff with the 5 children, I might do that. But of course, when the system is not flexible enough, they have no one to clean your flat, cook, or even drive you around. I say, okay, you can give me a taxi that's big enough, and then I'll transport them and everything. No. So then I said, I unfortunately, this cannot be happening. Yeah.
Do you enjoy being an emergency foster carer?
Yeah, when I'm not suffering incredibly, I quite enjoy it. I like the children, and I like to also react flexibly and attention that by the themes that the children bring and their parents bring. I think that is filling it with a sense of it matters. It's not nothing. It really does matter, and it matters to me. And of course, the children are also quite lovely, and it's a joy to have them and to see the world through their eyes as well. So, and accompany them for a while. But then if it goes wrong, like you don't like the permanent foster family, or you worry about them going back and how their futures will turn out, and you wonder if their family can really find the support they need, then it is hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that is a difficult part of all fostering, but I guess as an emergency foster carer, that children will always be moving on.
Yeah.
And maybe, like you say, maybe that's to a permanent foster home or a return to families. And if that's positive, that's okay. But it sounds like sometimes it's not that easy.
No, no, it's not. Because I have maybe specific ideas about what I think a child-friendly transition would be into a new family. And, maybe the social worker thinks, well, 2 days should be enough for a baby, shouldn't it? They just need if they can smell something from the new permanent foster mother, that should be fine. And they give them the shawl in the bed for 2 days, and then you can give the child to someone else. So you really have a unique experience of helplessness as a foster carer. And also, I'm afraid, as a permanent foster parent, because of the parental authority that they do not have and cannot exercise in Germany. You really have also, as a permanent foster carer, very basic rights to decide the everyday questions. Unless 2 years have passed, then you can ask because the birth parents can always come back. They can always say, well, I now moved somewhere else with a different jurisdiction, and they can come back, and so that makes it hard for also the permanent foster carers.
I mean, it's interesting that some of the issues you're raising are issues that if I was to talk to a UK foster carer, they would be saying the same thing. Transitions, moving children, foster carers moving children into adoption or permanency, being really short and driven by the needs of the agency rather than the child. Not feeling like you've got authority when you would probably say the children better than anyone.
Well, even the social workers would say that. They say, "Oh, we don't decide anything. We're just specialists in concerning this child." But when the specialist never gets asked, also not by
Yeah.
the new permanent parents, maybe, because they think they have never heard about attachment, and they think the child's life starts once it's moving into the flat. And that is a fight I hate to fight. I would love to just fight for the children and for or have a good time, make their lives easier, but to educate everyone, so very annoying.
Well, it's because I talk to foster carers all the time, and I work with foster carers. But I was thinking, you're expressing the exact same frustrations with and I think one of the things I often say is that foster carers, they expect the work with the children to be hard at times, but they didn't expect the work with the professionals to be hard.
Exactly.
And that's the surprise.
Exactly. That is not a good surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I don't have to be an emergency foster carer all the time. So I can just say, I feel that my word is for this child for the time it takes. But once it's gone, I can say, don't call me again for 3 months now, because I have other things to do, like enjoying my life.
Yeah.
or whatever,
yeah.
earning money. And
and is that how do people respond if you say, "Oh, I'm going to take a 3-month break"? Is that okay, or
they haven't a choice? Because
fair enough.
Emergency foster carers are a rare breed and hard to come by. So that is the only freedom I have, is to not do it. Yeah. That is basically the only autonomy.
It's the one thing you can control.
Yeah.
You can say no.
Unfortunately, that is, I think about it.
Marie, you've been so generous with your time, and
thank you.
You've sort of painted a picture, and you've opened a window into a system that's very different in lots of ways, but actually, when you get down to it, some of the experiences of the carer are very, very similar. So what does the future hold for you? Will you continue fostering?
I think so. Once I have had some time to do other things, I think I will be back.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Well, thank you so much for your time. And if you do return, I wish you well and good luck and favor with the social workers.
I will. It'll be a good time. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Yes, this is not just emergency foster care in Germany or permanent foster care, but there are also different types of foster care. Like we have a weekday foster care, which was originally designed for people who work in shifts and who can maybe only look after the children at the weekends, but usually not in the week, and because they might be nurses or lorry drivers or whatever, and then there can be a weekday foster care installed. Then there's obviously respite care for maybe other foster parents who need some time to themselves or have to go to hospital. And then this is what I thought was interesting, because this has recently been developed after a Scandinavian model, is the so-called godparent care, or godmother, or it's called Paten in Germany. So you're a godmother or godfather to one child whose parent has psychiatric health problems, and you will take that child in maybe once a week, or it could be 2 times a week, generally, if the parent is well. But you have a continuing relationship with that child. And once maybe they have a disease that goes in waves, and once it's like a borderline problem or some schizophrenic diseases, when they go in a shift where the parent has to go to the hospital, then that child already knows their foster carers, and then they can stay with them for some weeks or maybe even in a month or even longer, and then can return to the family once the situation has changed for the better. So that is a way to try to keep the children in their families when that can be supported.
Oh, well, thank you. That's fascinating, and that is more food for thought. So again, thank you very much, and wish you well.